Welcome everybody to the Legendary Banner Impressions for November of 2018. It looks like we finally got what many people requested, whether they were the vocal minority or the vocal majority. It does not matter. Hrid is here, and so are a bunch of other heroes. And as we always do, we're going to look at the banner itself, what colors are good ideas to look at, whether you're a new player or an experienced player, and consider different modes, and what you should spend your orbs, if you should spend your orbs, and how many. Along with that, we'll take a quick look at Hrid's new skills and my impressions of them, and finally we'll look at the mathematics near the end for what things you should consider. Alright, let's jump straight into it then, shall we? A new legendary hero joins the battle.
I'm Hrid, the eldest prince of Nif.
Okay, so to be totally honest with you guys, this is somewhat of a surprise to me. At first, I didn't think it would happen because I didn't think they would put OCs, like original characters, on a legendary banner anymore after Fjorm and Gunther being the first two, because maybe they just didn't sell, but I guess they're giving it another shot with Hrid, even though his character development, in my opinion, isn't very good, but I guess some people like his looks. So instead of calling him hot, you call him cold? Okay, whatever. So he's a wind blessing instead of a water blessing, which is also kind of odd to me because the next month coming up in December is still a water month, even though he's a wind blessed hero. I guess they didn't really want another water red cav sword, so that's probably why they ended up giving him wind instead. I guess it also makes sense with Gunther also being wind, so they can work together. Like you can put Gunther and Hrid on one team, and I think that's the kind of the best case scenario of how to use him in a team comp. But he himself as an individual unit, I don't think he's going to shine too much due to being a red sword cavalier, and just like Erica, it's a very saturated pool, and you know he's going to have some pretty good min-max stats, or his preference weapon or preference skills really going to have to place him ahead of the pack, unfortunately, to make him shine. So let's actually look at it and see what I think. Okay, so skills that we're familiar with: Moonbow and Attack Smoke. So those aren't things you're going to be really pulling for, but we do have Distant Counter finally. So I guess this guy is Hector on a horse, which is crazy. Only Hector had Distant Counter before, so this is another means of getting Distant Counter. Unfortunately, it's on the red pool, and he's a legendary hero, so it's going to be pretty hard to actually pick up copies of Distant Counter here. Just to start it off, and I'll mention this later, please don't pull for Distant Counter, because honestly, pulling for Distant Counter is better off done on green, where the pool is less saturated and you spend less orbs for more distant counters, or you literally wait for a 3-person banner with Hector on it, where you're going to spend a lot less orbs pulling for distant counter. So don't chase distant counter here. And I mean, the only reason you would is maybe considering what the other red units on the pool are that he's sharing with, and whether that fodder is good for you as well. Anyways, looking at his preference skill, we have Freezing Seal in the B. Freezing Seal is similar to Gunther's Chilling Seal, but Freezing Seal checks res rather than defense, so it shouldn't necessarily overlap with Gunther, especially if you use both on the team. Kind of it might in scenarios, especially if you run into like some LND Braybo, users. They tend to just have terrible defensive stats, and then Gunther may not really get that value. But what is cool is that you can use, let's say, Hrid on a team comp with Gunther and take off Gunther's Chilling Seal, and then use her more offensively with like Desperation and like Blizzard, and get yourself some value that way rather than using her own Chilling Seal. So that's pretty cool. I think there's some really cool synergy between those two, and I look forward to seeing those team comps in action, really. Okay, anyways, let's look at his weapon. So I'm not gonna butcher this, but I'll try. Gyol? Okay, Gyol. Anyways, Gyol has a 19 attack weapon because it grants 3 attack. If there is some sort of negative status on the enemy, similar to synergizing well with his Freezing Seal, think of like Blizzard on Gunther, giving her extra attack when units are debuffed, it pretty much prevents that unit from following up and then Hrid ends up having a double for sure. So what this means is that he pretty much has a breaker as long as the enemy is inflicted with some sort of debuff, which works really well with his freezing seal. And it also likely might mean that he might end up having stats that are min-max with low speed and then having everything else like defense, res, and attack with HP as well, which could put him in a cool situation that works well with his weapon. However, dumping the B slot is always a little bit of an issue for me. The B slot is quite a powerful thing. So for example, if you're using freezing seal in B and he ends up just, you know, he's going to be a little bit inconsistent because you wouldn't be able to double a lot of things. You would need to really create a team comp around him. You need to be using ploys or smokes, or you know, he has it. There's ways to do it, but you can't just place him on a team and make him work. I don't think he's that simple. And if you end up just chilling a unit in the back row and you don't really have any other debuffs or panics or anything like that, he's not getting value out of his weapon. He's not really getting value out of his seal. So yeah, he can work, but he's going to have specific team comps or scenarios for that to happen. I don't think he's the worst, but yeah, let's see what it brings. The stats will definitely give me a second look at it.
Ice upon you.
Alright, here we go. So, sharing in the legendary banner, we got Gunthra, which is fitting because Gunthra is actually good. F. Grima, we got F. Canna, Rioma, Noir, Summer Oscar, Innis, Legendary Lucina, Brave Hector, Nina, which is odd, and Levitine, which is also pretty odd. But yeah, here's pretty much what we have in terms of our legendary hero banner. As I said in my predictions, I didn't think that I would hit the mark on these, and I was right. There is some definite random stuff here. It looks like they chose to go with, like, in the red slot, they had Hrid, Rioma, and I believe Levitine. So that was really, they like skipped ahead a lot of heroes doing that. And instead of doing like Brave Roy or Brave Celica, they ended up putting Brave Hector as our first CYL2 unit in the blue slot, because again, there wasn't really that much quality stuff that they could put. Anyways, I'm going to look at them individually and we'll go through it that way. So let's start off with red. I'll summarize everything after when we look at the mathematics. Let's look at red and what you could get out of red. So red pretty much comes with distant counter, kestrel stance, guidance, and I guess attack smoke to a lesser extent. I don't really think most of those things are worth really pulling for. Distant counter is definitely the one that shines ahead, but if you got to look at the things besides that, you also have odd speed wave, attack speed link, I believe, or sorry, attack defense link, and Fury. Again, that doesn't really matter. But yeah, odd speed wave and attack defense link are decent fodder. Levitine herself is an amazing unit. Guidance and kestrel stance, I think, are the weak link when it comes to fodder here, but Legendary Rioma is indeed a legendary hero, and that was going to make him stand apart as a pull here on the red. Basically what I'm saying is getting legendary hero merges is a huge advantage, a huge boon for being able to get high scoring in something like Arena Assault. As soon as you're able to put together merged legendary heroes, you can take advantage of seasons and score exceptionally well. An example of this is I have a +10 Fjorm on my account, and that was all pretty much F2P orbs of saving. As soon as I got that, anytime there's water season, I pretty much have a free ticket to the top 200 in Arena Assault and an easy week in Arena whenever that happens. Fjorm, unfortunately, is not the greatest legendary hero, but beyond that, getting merges on legendary heroes always has value, and there is some value to be said here. Do consider, though, that probably in the months coming forth, including January, which is confirmed, January does have Legendary Ike and Legendary Erica coming up sharing. We don't know yet whether next month might also have some overlap in legendary heroes. We might actually see Hrid coming back like next month. Like, I don't know. We don't know yet. We'll know when the banner debuts and look forward to that. It might not, this combination of legendary heroes may not be ideal, but nonetheless, it's decent fodder, but the problem has always been with red that red is very expensive on your orb value. You spend so many orbs in red to get these heroes. I gotta admit that red has good fodder in the 3 and 4 star, so if you need some fodder, that might be worth considering while getting these units should you need merges or specific fodder in that aspect. As Ether Raids units, I think Ryoma's okay, but not great. Hrid might be pretty good, although I think he'd be pretty good actually just because of Cecilia and Reinhardt being so dominant as the green and blue units. So that's probably something to consider as well, especially if you were to bless them with wind. Unfortunately, it doesn't give something like attack, unlike Erica who does with water. So yeah, let's move on. Okay, in blue, we got Legendary Lucina's return finally. We got Brave Hector and Summer Cordelia. I think actually this one is going to be one of the best in terms of providing a good roundabout of different skills and fodder. So you got Legendary Lucina having Distant Guard. She's also exceptionally, like, really good of a unit. Future Vision could really throw people off on Ether Raid's defense or even arena defense, or playing just having an arena unit that can use something besides double rallies, for instance, is huge. You can pretty much reposition with a double Future Vision. You can self dance and create some really good situations. Even if she's completely useless and you run against a bunch of greens, she has great utility. So Legendary Lucina is definite winner there. She's also really powerful, and if blue dual infantry ever happens, she'll be one of the best units for it. So merges on her, and Distant Guard is also really good on Ether Raid's defense because it'll buff your whole team and make them exceptionally tanky. So Brave Hector, Bold Fighter, and even Res Wave, which is whatever, but Bold Fighter, again, always a good skill to have. Armors, unfortunately, have kind of fallen off on the meta a little bit, so don't think that's really valued as much. And unfortunately, Brave Hector himself, I don't really think he's going to be lasting too much with so many other heroes kind of being better. He's kind of good as like a budget hero, I would say. Like you can just use him in a lot of team comps and as a blue armor, and his base kit's already good to go. He's got like distant counter. You don't have to really fodder much to make him work. So that's always good. And he's got QR and Bold Fighter already built in. So he's a good unit himself. And finally, Summer Oscar. Summer Oscar, unfortunately, I don't recommend pulling for as a unit unless you go all the way for +10, and then it's like not really good value for orbs there. But the good thing about it is that Shell Lance and Dull Close are really good skills, and both of them can be found in a lot of places where they could be used, especially something like Dull Close, where we're starting to see a lot more buffs happening. If you're not using something like a Versus Knight to stop buffs against maybe some really buffed up enemies, Dull Close does really well in a lot of content where you run into those type of units. So yeah, blue gets a really good thumbs up for value. I'll list them out from what I think from top to last once I check them all out. Finally, in green, we got Summer Xander Wannabe on the right. We got Gunthra and Efcana. Now, I want to mention that Gunthra and Hrid together on a team comp, as I already said, are going to be really good. So if you're thinking about getting like both of them on one banner, this might be the time for it. However, green is pretty poo-poo otherwise. Efcana really only comes with Go Dragons and Fierce Stance, and unfortunately she pretty much got power creeped by the female Mama Corrin. So that's unfortunate. Literally more BST preference weapon and such, so you're not really going to be finding much value out of Efcana, unfortunately. I guess Water Breath is okay, but in that case you really could just use Emcana if you're not using him, so that stinks. And Summer Innis, Beach Banner is good, and Defense Feint is good, but I don't think it really carries green enough for it to be worth value. Gunthra herself as fodder is also not really that good. It's got Fortress Res, and I think it's Res Ploy, so like Res Ploy is still kind of rare, but it's not really, this is not the time for green, unfortunately. It's just a shame that Gunthra and Hrid end up being here and green ends up being pretty disappointing. You don't really want Canas, you don't really want Innis in a lot of scenarios. Okay, and finally, Colorless. So Colorless is decent this time around. Again, Cocoa Bow is a good weapon. Infantry Rush, while it isn't exactly as amazing as I would say most people think it is, it can be useful in specific team comps and specific scenarios, and even now with Ether Raids, you could probably create teams that capitalize on its usage. Unfortunately, it is based on an attack stat rather than a speed stat, but attack can be overcome in this scenario because Ether Raids doesn't run into like these armors that have 70 attack. There is a good chance you could proc it a lot more consistently. Finally, in Nina's end, the only thing that really strikes me as useful there is going to be Shining Bow and I guess her speed res link, so that's decent, but it's not terrible. I don't think speed res link is as useful as like it's about as useful as speed res bond in my opinion. Like you use it on specific characters and get value out of them, but beyond that it's not as good as like maybe attack defense link or attack speed link on a lot of characters who would just value that instead. So but Shining Bow could be really good in specific characters. Finally, and this is probably the most important thing to realize, is F Grima is really good now in the current meta. Current meta in Ether Raids, you can super buff an F Grima using Hone, Fort Flyers, Ward Flyers and such, Summoner support, Ally support, and you can absolutely tank everything. Like I literally mean everything. Distant Defense, like Noontime Soul, Dragon Skin. She doesn't have a real counter other than like dragon slaying weapons, which you don't see a lot of because Reinhardt doesn't have a dragon slaying weapon, Veronica doesn't have a dragon slaying weapon, and anything else doesn't really. You can combine her with a Versa to really shut down horses and plant F Grima into a lot of that stuff, and she'll take absolutely no damage and win Ether Raids literally off of that. So if you don't have an F Grima and you feel like you're struggling in Ether Raids, F Grima is highly recommended, and this colorless pool is not terrible to pull from should you get the other units as well. So, but it depends on what you play for, but I highly recommend F Grima because she's really become really good. Anyways, so if I want to really summarize these ones from top to bottom, the biggest loser definitely is going to be green, unfortunately, followed by probably colorless. And the reason I say this is because it depends on what you need. It totally depends on you. Do you need these specific units? Do you need the fodder? That's pretty much it. So green, colorless. Blue is top for this one, I would say, and red is unfortunately in third. But it could depend. Some people may prefer blue over red and red over blue, so I would probably consider them about equal, but in my case, I would put blue as slightly over red. Green is a complete avoid from this banner, and colorless depends on your scenarios as well. But yeah, that pretty much covers what I think of this specific legendary banner. I want to also look at the mathematics for those of you that aren't completely informed on how this stuff works. Summoning in Fire Emblem Heroes depends totally on how saturated a pool is. And yeah, so red has the most units in the game, so to get a specific focus is really difficult because there's so many units in the red pool. Every time you see a red orb, it's less likely that it's a 5-star focus than compared to green. And green is not really good to pull here, so that's unfortunate. What I do recommend is walk into these legendary banners with the mindset that you're pulling for color and not for specific units. If you walk in here with 100 orbs thinking you're going to get Hrid, that is definitely not likely to happen. It's not impossible because there are people like 1 in 50 or so, really unlikely that people do get Hrid on a very minimal amount of orbs. But yeah, it is very unlikely. So unless you've been saving for these banners specifically, you're not going to walk in here getting all of them from a color. But if you do end up maybe having about 200 to 300, that's a good amount to say you're probably going to get every single color, every single unit from a color. There are odd cases as well where you could spend like 800 orbs and not even see a unit from a color as well. So expectations should always come in here to not get a specific unit, be happy with a color. And that's why I rank the colors rather than the specific units from a banner as a collective whole. Yeah, so between blue and red, I would say those are your places to pull. If you feel like you need Gunthra merges, this is okay, but I don't really recommend it. And like colorless, just like Gunthra Hrid synergy just seems good, but colorless, again, depends on your needs. Your best value is always to try to pull as many colors as possible to get as many 5-star focuses, and that's where legendary banners truly shine. So yeah, thanks again, everyone who took the time to go through my analysis. As always, I will go through it again, and other predictions and another video on it as well. Look forward to Ether Raids offense and defense, meta and guides and tips to kind of succeed if you feel like you've been struggling with that mode, especially for Grails. And yeah, you can probably also consider legendary banners coming up where there's going to be more overlap in legendary heroes. Finally, please let me know what you're looking for in the comments below. Give the video a thumbs up if you like the content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. That's it for me, guys. Love you all. See you in the next one. Peace.